Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking into the incredibly tragic final hours of a global superstar. Now, it's a story that ended with a frantic 911 call, but honestly, the real questions started long before that day.
So, on June 25th, 2009, the world just stood still, stunned by the news of his death. The official cause, was a drug overdose. But the details that started leaking out from inside his LA home, they painted a really disturbing picture, and it makes you ask the big question. Was this just a tragic accident, or was it something else entirely?
To even begin to understand what happened, we've got to go back. We have to reconstruct those final hours. And the story really kicks off just after midnight, right after a rehearsal for his huge, highly anticipated comeback tour, This Is It. When you look at this timeline, it reveals a really long and frankly desperate night. So he gets home from rehearsal and he just can't sleep. Over the next 9 hours, his personal doctor, Conrad Murray, gives him this whole cocktail of sedatives. And it all leads up to 10:40 a.m. with a fatal dose of a powerful anesthetic. And that was followed by a frantic, delayed 911 call that, as we now know, came way too late.
Now, at the very heart of this tragedy was Jackson's severe chronic insomnia. This was a condition he had battled for years, and it's the whole reason Dr. Murray was even there. He was hired to help him get the rest he so desperately needed to be able to perform.
So, after hours and hours of other sedatives, we're talking Valium, Ativan, just weren't working, a desperate Michael Jackson started pleading, begging for the one thing he believed would finally let him sleep. And he had a nickname for it. He called it his milk.
And that milk? Well, it was propofol. And listen, this is absolutely the most crucial point in this whole story. Propofol is not a sleeping pill. It's a potent surgical anesthetic that literally stops your breathing. It should only ever be used in a hospital with all kinds of sophisticated monitoring equipment. So to use it in a bedroom as a sleep aid, it was just unbelievably dangerous.
So the big question is, how on earth did the King of Pop get so dependent on a surgical anesthetic just to get some sleep? Well, the story starts with a long history of pain, and it's rooted in two absolutely devastating accidents.
These two events, they would completely change the course of his life. They set him on this long and painful path that led pretty much directly to a dependency on incredibly powerful prescription drugs. It all started back in 1984. A pyrotechnic stunt went horribly wrong during a Pepsi commercial, and it left him with these horrific third-degree burns on his scalp. Then, 15 years later, tragedy strikes again. A stage bridge collapses during a concert, causing a severe back injury. So you put those together, and these accidents left him with this legacy of chronic pain that would haunt him for the rest of his life.
But the pain wasn't just physical. From a very young age, Michael Jackson lived under an immense, almost unimaginable amount of psychological pressure.
His father, Joseph, was incredibly demanding, and that created these deep insecurities that fueled a lifelong obsession with his appearance. And then you pile on top of that the relentless glare of the media and the incredible strain of two very public child abuse trials. And even though he was never convicted, you can imagine the profound mental and emotional toll that all took.
Okay, so understanding this whole context, the physical pain, the psychological pressure, it's so important as we go back to the scene of his death and really look at the actions of his physician, Dr. Conrad Murray. You see, when prosecutors started examining the events in that room, they didn't just see a tragic accident. No, they saw a clear pattern of gross medical negligence, a whole series of fatal mistakes that they believed could have and should have been avoided.
So the prosecution's case really zeroed in on three critical failures. First, Dr. Murray was giving him a hospital-grade anesthetic with zero monitoring equipment to track his vitals. None. Then, when he found Jackson unresponsive, he performed CPR on a soft bed, which basically makes it useless. And maybe most critically, he delayed calling 911, wasting precious minutes that might have actually saved Jackson's life.
And then there were the actions taken right before paramedics got there, which also raised a lot of suspicion. Dr. Murray actually told a security guard to help him gather up medical vials and IV bags. And investigators later found all this equipment, including anesthetics, hidden away. That's a detail that strongly suggests he was trying to conceal evidence.
So with all this evidence pointing to severe negligence and maybe even a cover-up, what was the official verdict from the court? And what questions are we still left with today? In the end, the court found Dr. Murray guilty of involuntary manslaughter, not murder, and that distinction is really important. The jury believed his actions were criminally negligent and that they directly caused Jackson's death, but they couldn't prove that he intended for him to die.
For this, Dr. Murray was sentenced to the maximum of 4 years in prison, although he was released after serving just 2. For so many of Jackson's fans and his family, this sentence just felt like a complete injustice for the loss of such a monumental figure.
Ultimately, the court did deliver a verdict. But the full truth? That might have died in that room right along with Michael Jackson. We're left with this official story of negligence and desperation. But the question is always going to linger. Was that the whole story?